Hey everybody, my name is Rydo, and we can finally look at all the Knights of the Frozen Throne cards, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at every single Druid card, and then there will be a video out for Hunter, then Mage, then Paladin, Priest, then Rogue, then Shaman, then Warlock, then Warrior, then all the neutral cards. And it will be the neutral cards that will be the longest run. So, to be able to see the cards, which you can finally do, you need to go into crafting mode, and you need to select standard set Frozen Throne. And we're going to go through each one of these and just see what they are. This is the beginning for me of the new expansion, which is coming out in a couple of days. And this is where I'm going to start thinking about the cards, the first time I've seen them, first impressions, and how they may help in new deck builds that I'll be building after I open. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 100 card packs once that's available. So to begin here, we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called the Druid of the Swarm. Choose one, transform into a 1/2 with poisonous or a 1/5 with taunt. So this card off the bat works well with the legendary that had already existed with the Druid, where you choose one, cards get both. So with that legendary card on the field, you would become a 1/5 with poisonous and taunt for 2 mana. A pretty good card in that deck. Maybe that will make that deck a little bit more playable. Although, in all actuality, playing an entire deck around one legendary card is probably not the best strategy unless you don't have that many cards. Next we have a 3 mana, 1 attack, 6 health creature called the Crypt Lord. Taunt after you summon a minion, gain +1 health. Already we're starting to see the cards are getting a little bit crazy here, because this on the 3rd turn with several Murlocs on the 4th turn would make this a 1/10 with taunt. Like, imagine that. Like, 3rd turn you play this for 1 mana Murlocs or 1 mana anything, any minions. You wouldn't even have to play it specifically on the 3rd turn if you had 0 mana creatures of some kind. This is going to be used probably, unless all the other cards are pretty crazy. I've heard these cards are kind of crazy, and I'm very excited by that. So we have our first spell card, 3 mana spell called Nash. Give your hero +3 attack this turn, gain 3 armor. This is just a cheaper version of an already existing card. Not a bad way to expand though. Having a 3 mana version of a card and a 2 mana version and a 1 mana version and a 4 mana version of the exact same kind of cards isn't a terrible idea. It gives you a little bit more variety and lets you balance your deck easier if you needed, say, a 3 mana card because you don't have any 3rd turn cards to play, or if you needed a 4 mana card. Giving you those options is nice. Here we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature called the Strong Shell Scavenger, and it has a battle cry to give your taunt minions +2/+2. So if you were building a taunt deck where everybody had taunt, this would be helpful. I could see that happening. I haven't specifically built a taunt deck for the Druid, but it would probably work just fine because there's plenty of taunt creatures that are neutral. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 3 health creature called the Fate Spinner. It has choose a death rattle secretly, which this is a new phrasing, new mechanic. Deal 3 damage to all minions or give them all +2/+2. I don't see a huge reason why a lot of times you would give all minions +2/+2, But it does definitely give you that option if, say, you're playing very well and you're playing control and killing all of your opponent's minions, so he doesn't have anything on the field. It would make this useful, whereas dealing 3 damage to all minions isn't that useful if you're playing control and you have 6 or 7 minions on your side and they have none on theirs. Conversely, if they're playing control and they're managing to kill everything that you put on the field, dealing 3 damage to all minions makes a lot of sense. So, for the low health, this one could be a good board clear or a good buff to all of your characters. So I could see playing that, certainly. Next card is a 5 mana spell called Spreading Plague. Summon a 1/5 Scarab with Taunt. If your opponent has more minions, cast this again. So, you play this on the 5th turn. If he has 7 minions and you have none, you would get 7 1/5s with taunts. Or, wait, no, you would have, I imagine, 6 1/5s with taunt. Because it says if your opponent has more minions, not the same amount. So you still wouldn't match him, but it would be pretty good. What I'm noticing here is that there's not a ton of cards. So Druid is going to be pretty easy. Each of these class cards are going to be pretty easy. I thought this expansion was going to be bigger than that, but maybe they play more in the neutral field. Next we have is a 5 mana spell called Webweave. Summon 2 1/2 poisonous spiders. This is the first card I've seen that seems just on the face of it to not be worth it. It's pretty expensive to spend 2.5 mana to summon a 1/2 spider. It's like, I wouldn't even really want to spend 2 mana to summon a 1/2 spider without poisonous. Because you could probably get a 1/2 creature easily in the neutral for 1 mana. Oops, I forgot to put myself in busy mode. Let me fix that. There we go. Fix the chat. Well, that's going to be on the recording forever. Hopefully that fixed it. The chat itself doesn't work the greatest. Here we have the new mechanic that is the main mechanic to Knights of the Frozen Throne, the Frozen Knights. So it is a 7 mana new hero card, I suppose. It's something new called Malfurion the Pestilence. And you can choose one, summon 2 poisonous spiders or 2 scarabs with taunt. It also gives your hero either 5 health or 5 armor. I'm not sure which. So there's an interesting things that happen here. Like, if this is played and it only gives your opponent, it only gives you 5 health. So you go from the starting 30 health to 5 health. It's pretty bad. Otherwise, it may be fine. Also, it changes your hero ability to Plague Lord, and you have a hero power to choose one, plus 3 attack this turn, or gain 3 armor. Which, this is most definitely a better hero ability than what you start off with. Now, these cards in particular would still probably work very well with that legendary card that I guess we're going to have to go find, just so I can name it accurately, because then you'll choose one abilities do both, plus 3 attack and gain 3 armor each for 2 mana, which is very good, or choose 2 poisonous spiders and 2 scarabs with taunt, which is great because that would be 4 minions added to your field for 7 mana at plus 5 armor. I think that's what that means. The next thing we have is a 9 mana, 3 attack, 7 health. So we haven't ever seen a creature so far introduced that's really high on attack or health. Doesn't seem to be what they're adding here, which is fine because we've been down that route and there's plenty of really strong characters that don't do anything special as far as their abilities. This creature is called Hadronics. Death Rattle, summon your taunt minions that have died this game. That is going to work very well for a taunt deck, and that's certainly where my head is leaning right now. It's also a beast, so if you're doing a beast card, a beast deck, that might make some sense. And then the final card we have is a 10 mana spell called Ultimate Infestation that deals 5 damage, draws 5 cards, gains 5 armor, summons 5/5, summons a 5/5 ghoul. Interesting. This is an insanely good card, I think. Really, really insanely good. It wouldn't be crazy to do 10 damage for 10 mana and that be it. It wouldn't be insane to draw 5 cards. Well, compare Sprint, which is a rogue card that is 7 mana to draw 4 cards. You're getting quite the discount there for less than 5 mana to draw 5. Gaining 5 armor, you could probably gain 5 armor for maybe 3 or 4 mana, or maybe 6 if you just use the hero ability, and then summon a 5/5 ghoul. Depending on what the ghoul actually even does, if it's just a 5/5 creature with no special ability, that itself would probably be 5 mana. So this is, I would guess, close to 21 mana worth of effect for 10 mana. That is pretty crazy. And I wonder if there's going to be something like this every for each character. That being said, this doesn't fully strategize with the other cards we've seen, but that's alright. It's so powerful anyways. So I want to go to all cards here just for a second to point out the legendary card. Here he is, that I was talking about. Fandral Staghelm. Your choose 1 cards and powers have both effects combined. I think this has been rephrased, but I didn't see an announcement about that because this didn't seem like it used to say that. Well, that's the Druid cards. So in our next video, we will look at the Hunter cards. That's it for this one. As always, I end my episodes the same way. I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. All of that helps me with YouTube. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. Last time we looked at the Druid, this time we're going to look at all the new Hunter cards. So to see the cards now, you go into crafting mode, you click this and select Frozen Throne. And that's how you get there. So the first card we have is the 1 mana spell called Play Dead. Trigger a friendly minion's death rattle. I think we've already had a card like this. I think this is an interesting animation too. It seems a little out of place for the World of Warcraft aesthetic, but maybe the cards I've seen before that trigger a death rattle cost more than 1 mana. And this is limited to a friendly minion, but it's mostly unlikely you wouldn't, that you'd want to trigger an opponent's death rattle anyways. So maybe this is the beginning of a death rattle deck. We'll have to go forward and see what other cards it adds. Next card we have is a 2-mana spell called Toxic Arrow. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it survives, give it poisonous. I don't know about this. This seems pretty late game. It might be useful in a few places if you were to pull it off, but in most scenarios, I think for 2 mana, it would have to be played so late game that it wouldn't really be that helpful. I'm trying to think, if you summoned like a 5/10 with taunt, and then you do damage to it to make it a 5/8 and poisonous, what does that kill the fact that it's a 5 attack in the first place? Really, at most I imagine you could kill 2, maybe 3 really small characters with this card, and not really worth it. Moving on, we have a 2-mana spell called the Venom Strike Trap Secret. When your opponent, when your minion is attacked, summon a 2/3 poisonous cobra. This seems just like an expansion of the snake attack, but it will certainly be helpful in a secrets deck, which is what a lot of hunter decks are, is secrets decks, to play more secrets. I imagine eventually we'll just get down to the point where we have certain hunter decks that are just 30 cards of secrets and nothing else, which would be interesting, certainly. We have a 3-mana, 4-attack, 3-health creature called the Bear Shark. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. It's a beast. So Bear Shark is probably just a joke character, but he is a beast. He'll work in the beast deck. He does have the special ability of not being targeted. I have yet to see a great strategy for characters that can't be targeted, and I wouldn't want it to become the standard. I wouldn't want 50% of all the cards that you can play just not be targetable, because then that would limit the ability to silence, it would limit the ability to freeze, it would limit the ability to do a lot of different things. But one more is not going to ruin the balance of the game. Moving on, we have a 3-mana, 2-attack, 2-health creature called the Stitch Tracker. Battlecry, discover a copy of a minion in your deck. This might work very well if you're playing a lot of legendaries. Then you could get multiple copies of the same legendary, which would be pretty devastating. And it's not like it's a different version of a legendary. It would be the exact same thing. So I could imagine very high-ranked players playing this card, whereas people that have just started playing Hearthstone and don't have that very many of good cards, or just a basic collection of cards, they're not going to really have much use for this. It's a underpowered card for 3 mana, 2/2 health. Generally speaking, if something costs 4 mana, you would want to see it be a 3/3 or a 3/4 or a 4/3. If something costs 3, you'd want to see it as a 2/3, a 3/2, or a 3/3 with no ability. Or so anytime you see these two not adding up to this, or more than this, you've got to see something here to balance that out. And it's a power creep that every expansion goes up higher and higher. So next expansion there could easily be a 4-mana, 3-attack, 1-health creature that deals 2 damage to all enemy minions. So some of the older cards start to become useless compared to newer versions of the similar cards. This is a 4 mana, 2 health, 1 attack creature called the Exploding Bloatbat. Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So, here's a good example. This is like a Zerg from StarCraft. So they must have done a little bit of a crossover because Hearthstone's just supposed to be Warcraft. So for 1 mana, you do this on top of this on your 5th turn. Not the greatest combination in my opinion. Next we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 4 health creature called Professor Putricide. After you play a secret, put a random hunter secret into the battlefield. This card will get played a lot in the secrets deck. This is a very important one to keep an eye on and one to get. It is a legendary, however. By the way, everything that's in blue is in blue because I can make it with my 900 dust. Legendaries cost 1600 dust, so I can't craft that. Of course, none of them can be crafted right now because the expansion isn't out. Next we have is a 5 mana, 4 attack, 6 health creature called the Corpse Widow. Your Death Rattle cards cost 2 less. It's a beast too. Was this a beast? No. So in Wild in particular, there's some pretty good Death Rattle cards. Fugan and Stalag particularly. So you definitely have the development of a great Death Rattle deck. Now, that's what they're focusing on. At least for the Hunter, which is okay, because that's pretty much how Hunter works half the time anyways, it punishes people for killing minions, or it kills the opponent's minions. It's very much about controlling the board and pulling off surprises. So here's our Knights of the Frozen Throne hero replacement card. It is 6 mana, 5 armor or health. I'm still not certain about this. It certainly will change how useful these cards are. Now there is a problem with these expansions, and it's a similar problem to the previous expansion that introduced quest cards. I'm gonna probably open 100 card packs. There's almost certainly a guarantee I am not getting all 9 of these cards. So maybe I won't get any of them. That would be a little unlikely, but I probably will only get 2 or 3 of them, and depending on which 2 or 3 of them I get, I may never even play any of them. And this is the most important metric. Ideally, these new cards would be handed to everybody. Ideally, you would get this in your first purchase of a card pack. You would just get 9 cards instead of 5, and each one was for each minion. So here, anyways though, his name is Deathstalker Rexar. Rexar being the original guy. So these are Frozen Throne versions of the heroes you're already playing as. Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Hero power, create a custom Zombeast. I'm not sure what the options will be on the custom Zombeast, but that is certainly a very varied and probably great hero ability. Honestly, because if it's any variety of health or attack or custom abilities, that'll be amazing. And dealing 2 damage to all enemy minions is nice too for 6 mana. The only thing I can imagine that would make a card like this not worth it to play is if you just have way better cards and you don't want to take up a spot, or if this actually just does reduce your health to a maximum of 5. And maybe that is the case. And finally we have a 7 mana, 6 health, 6 attack, 7 health creature called the Abominable Bowman. Death Rattle, summon a random friendly beast that died this game. So, not too bad there. So clearly in the Hunter expansion, they wanted to focus on Death Rattle. It feels pretty much like every time there's an expansion, that's mostly what they do, is they'll have cards that focus on 2 mechanics at most. Here it was secrets and beasts and Death Rattle, so it's 3 very generalized expansions. I'm hoping though that there's a lot more neutral cards, otherwise I may very well find that opening 100 card packs is not even worth it. I may get the entire collection. Not likely. Last time, for previous expansions in comparison, it has cost 2 to 3 to 400 card packs to open to get an entire expansion, and who knows how much to get all of them in gold if you were even going for that goal. But maybe it doesn't seem like there's as many new cards here as there were last time, which, okay, fine. Make it a little bit easier on them, make it cheaper. I'd much prefer that they add newer cards more often with a smaller amount than making us basically wait for Christmas every 4 months and then get a large amount of cards that people forget about. That's going to be it for this video. We'll come back and look at the next set of cards that are new in the Knights of the Frozen Throne. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all of the Knights of the Frozen Thrones cards. It's finally available. So you come over here to crafting, and then you click this to Frozen Throne. Last time we looked at the Hunter cards. This time we're going to look at the Mage cards. They're not giving us a ton of cards, so I'm breezing through this a lot quicker than I thought. The first card we have is a spell card, not surprising for a mage. 1 mana spell called Breath of the Sindragosa. I'm going to mispronounce some of these things, obviously. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy minion and freeze it. So, Frost Mage card, not terrible to do 2 damage, but a little undesirable to play against a random enemy minion and freeze it. This probably won't get played too much in a Frost Mage deck if you have better cards, which I suppose you could say with any card is, regardless of how bad a card is, if you only have a small selection, you may still end up playing it. It may be the best option you have. Next we have is a 2 mana, 1 attack, 3 health elemental creature called Ice Walker. This, I believe, is the first elemental that we've seen so far. Your hero power also freezes a target. This I could see getting played a lot with Frost Mage and will bring the Frost Mage meta deck into more play. But this alone, if you have 2 of these in your deck, isn't probably enough to really shore up a guarantee of being able to freeze things. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health creature called the Cold Wraith. Battle cry if an enemy is frozen, draw a card. That'll get used in Frost Mage. It seems like they're very focused on Frost Mage right now. But this is also Knights of the Frozen Throne, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just did this to be thematically appropriate, and it's not like that many people play Mage anyways. Mage has always been a early introductory class for players, and you don't see a lot of the top ranked players playing Mage. It just doesn't happen. Everybody knows what a mage is going to do. It's going to try to cast spells. It's going to try to make spells cheaper. It's going to try and potentially freeze you, or just do a lot of damage to you. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 3 attack, 2 health creature called the Doomed Apprentice. Your opponent's spell costs 1 more. This would only really be that useful to play against somebody else who's going to play a bunch of spells, which would be a mage. So you probably won't play that unless it's, again, just a decent 3 mana minion. Next we have is a 3 mana spell called Frozen Clone. It's a secret. After your opponent plays a minion, add 2 copies to your hand. This, I suppose, is fine. It's a very roundabout way to get 2 copies of your opponent's minions, and probably won't change the outcome of a game very often. So in general, I wouldn't have a card like that in my deck because it's too random. Next we have is a 3 mana spell called Simulacrum. Copy the lowest cost minion in your hand. Interesting. Well, this has some strategy to it because you could potentially only have a 10 mana legendary in your hand, play this, and get another 10 mana legendary. So strategically wise, this could be used in very specific things. I think where you would see this used most is with Reno Jackson, because then you could play Reno Jackson and refill your health to 30 if you don't have any duplicates in your deck, and then you would have a second Reno Jackson to play if the opponent got you close to dying again. This will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. I haven't been pointing out the levels. I think I'll just stick with that. It speeds up the process. This is an epic. We've been looking at mostly common cards. These are blue ones are rares, and the legendaries are the orange ones. The rarity kind of doesn't matter that much. It's just how likely you are to get these cards when you open a card pack. Next we have is a 4 mana, 2 attack, 6 health creature called the Ghastly Conjurer. Add a Mirror Image spell to your hand. And Mirror Image gives you 2/0/2 creatures with taunt, I believe. We'll look at that later just to make sure. I'm pretty sure that's what that card is. Next we have a 8 mana spell called Glacial Mysteries. Put 1 of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. There's a Paladin card exactly like this. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper or a little bit more expensive, and they've just made a mage version of it. A very lazy card for them to create just to fill in the ranks, but they're being pretty specific here to have 10 new cards for each character, or at least 10, and I think that's fine. There are many cards that are specific to certain characters, and for a while they were going with the Cabal idea of cards that would work amongst multiple classes, and they've gotten rid of that idea, and now they're just going back to having like different versions of the same card for different characters, which is probably an easier way to play. I imagine the Cabal idea that was introduced in Mean Streets of Gadget Sand will never be brought up again. This is a 8 mana, 8 attack, 8 health dragon called Shindragrosa. Battlecry summon 2/0/1 frozen champions. I wonder if they're frozen. That's pretty useless unless they're also taunt, and even if they are taunt, it's still pretty useless. Dragons in general, though, I do want to see more about dragons, but I've never been able to suggest making a dragon deck. The only real synergy among dragons is they will benefit themselves if you're holding a different dragon, and that's kind of it. That seems to be the way they work, and it's not the greatest thing to play. But if they slowly add more dragons to the game, eventually you could potentially make an entire deck with dragons, and it would make sense. But right now, it still doesn't. And then finally we have the hero replacement card, which I guess technically is a legendary. A 9 mana, 5 armor or health. It looks like armor to me. I imagine if it was health, they would just put the symbol of health that we see in the creatures. Frost Lich Jaina. Battlecry summon a 3/6 water elemental. Your elementals have lifesteal this game. No explanation of what lifesteal is, however, but it might very well mean that every time they attack, it gains health for you. That might explain it, or it might be that at the end of the turn, they take one bit of life away from everybody else and gain more health. That would be interesting too. Like if you had 7 elementals on the deck and each one of them took one bit of health away from the enemy or the enemy's minions, you would pretty quickly win the game. In fact, probably too quickly. So I'm interested very much to see what lifesteal is. Your new hero ability is Icy Touch. Deal 1 damage. If this kills a minion, summon a water elemental. Not too bad there. It's a little low. Now there is a card in Wild that improves basic hero abilities, and I am not sure what it would do in this case. Whether it would improve these cards and say maybe deal 2 damage, or if it would just not do anything. It'll be interesting to see somebody try that out too once the cards are available. So let me see if I can find these cards while we're talking about them. So Mirror Image, for instance, is a 0 mana spell. So where is it? I'm pretty sure it's a 0 mana spell. This is all the cards that potentially exist in the game. Well, I guess I don't really have to search for it, do I? I can just type in the word mirror and then hit enter. Mirror Entity. Mirror Image. Ooh. So Mirror Image is not the card I thought it was. So that's something totally new. Well, I was thinking it was something else. What is that card that summons two 0/2s with taunt if it's not called Mirror Image? Am I looking at all cards? Yes. I can't find that card. Where did it go? Seems like I've lost a card. There's too many cards in this game. Clearly. And then so apologies to that. There was a mage card at one point that summoned 2 0/2s with taunt. If we come over here to the Grand Tournament and then just type in hero, this should work. There's a neutral card, not this one. Copy opponent's hero power. Certainly that will be useful, though. This, let's see, here we go. Jessica True Heart. Replace your starting hero power with a better one. I'm very interested to see what that does. Anyways, we've gone a little long. That's it for the mage cards. Next time we'll look at the paladin cards. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. I'm sure people will comment down below what that card is, that mage card that summons 2 0/2s with taunt. And that way they can help. And people will be laughing at me because I can't find it. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for the next expansion, Lords of the Frozen Throne. Isn't that? I don't remember the name of the new expansion. It's something Frozen Throne. So to see it, you have to go into crafting mode, and there's Frozen Throne. And last time we looked at mage cards, now we're looking at paladin cards. First one we have is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called the Righteous Protector. It has Daunt, not Daunt, although daunting might be an interesting keyword if they ever did introduce that. Or make it so that certain characters won't attack other characters because unless they are within the same health or attack or same or more. Interesting idea there. It has Taunt, which means you can't attack the hero without killing this guy first, and Divine Shield. So for the Paladin, this will work very well in a Divine Shield deck, and I can already see playing it. Next is a 2 mana spell called Dark Conviction. Set a minion's attack and health to 3. For that name, it doesn't seem like it does too much, really. It seems like this is just a really good card, particularly for the Paladin, that can summon one silver hand recruits to turn it to a 3/3. Next we have is a 2 mana spell. Give a minion death rattle, return this to life with 1 health. Desperate Stand. Not bad, again, for Paladin. The way you play Paladin is you overwhelm the opponent. You ensure you always have more minions on the field and control the board that way. Next one we have is a 3 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called the Howling Commander. Battlecry, draw a Divine Shield minion from your deck. Not too bad. It's not too bad for a Divine Shield deck. Not too bad just in general, as long as you have at least one Divine Shield creature. Next we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 2 health creature called the Arrogant Crusader. Death rattle if it's your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 ghoul. We've seen ghouls named before. Unless ghouls have some special ability, that's not that interesting, but we don't know. We'll have to play a card like this to see if ghouls have taunt, if they're poisonous, if they have some special other effect, or if it's just a regular 2/2 creature. In general, this is a little low on health otherwise. So if you don't want a ghoul, I wouldn't play that. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 2 health creature called the Chillblade Champion. It has charge and lifesteal. And we've heard about lifesteal before, but I'm not sure what it does. I'm not sure if it takes the life away from somebody it does damage to and adds it to itself, or if it takes it away from somebody it attacks and adds it to the hero, or if at the end of the turn it just takes some amount of health away and adds it to itself or the hero. So this is definitely another one of these lifesteal cards that we're going to have to play and see what it actually means as far as keyword. So far, pretty self-explanatory cards. Nothing crazy or special here, but all good cards for the most part. Like, things that probably needed to be added, not things that just are going to be crazy and change things. I imagine the Paladin meta deck is not super in need of a revamp as much as some of the other characters, and that's why these cards are pretty simplistic. Here we have a 4 mana, 1 attack, 4 durability weapon, which is the first weapon we've seen so far, called Light Sorrow. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +1 attack. This will work very well in my existing Divine Shield deck with some tweaks where I add more Divine Shield creatures, because you could play this and then lose all of your Divine Shields and give it a massive increase of attack. And there's a card that takes all the Divine Shields away from your heroes and increases its own attack. Between this card and that card, you could easily have, let's see, 6 other characters with Divine Shield on the field. If you took that, this would be a 7/4, which is really, really good. And then a 12/14 attack creature, I believe. We'll look at that later. Next we have the 5 mana, 1 attack, 7 health legendary card called Bolvar Fireblood. Divine Shield. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +2 attack. And here's another character that would certainly work well with that strategy. They're really beefing up that strategy. That's going to work very well going forward. Next we have the Blackguard. Whenever a hero is healed, deal that much damage to a random enemy minion. It is a 6 mana, 3 attack, 9 health creature. Whenever your hero is healed, deal that much damage to a random enemy minion. This is an odd card to have, I think, for a Paladin. This feels much more like a card that would be really overpowered if it was a priest card. And then we have our hero replacement, which is 9 mana, 5 shield creature. Well, no, not creature really. Hero replacement called Uther the Ebon Blade. Battle Cry, equip a 5/3 lifesteal weapon. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. And then it changes your hero ability to the full 4 horsemen. And summon a 2/2 horseman. If you have all 4, destroy the enemy hero. Wow. This has been something I have wanted to see added to Hearthstone for years now. The win the game instantly scenario. It has not existed in any fashion. There's been maybe some 5 to maybe even 6 or 7 card combinations that might almost guarantee you a victory, but nothing has ever said you just win. And I've been critical of this game that when you're fatigued and you don't have any cards, you don't automatically lose. Instead, it just does 1 damage the first time you draw and you don't have a card, and then 2 damage, then 3 damage. So it takes potentially 7 draws before you would actually lose when you run out of cards. Here we finally have it. people will have to work very hard to make sure this doesn't happen, and I imagine many strategies will ensure this doesn't happen. But this is definitely the card I want. This is what I'm chasing after when I open the 100 card packs for the new expansion, when it's available to do that. If I could get this quick victory every time, that would be great. This Hearthstone in general has been rather frustrating at times, getting victories. There's a lot of randomness, there's a lot of luck in it, there's a lot of struggle in it, particularly if you're not the best player, particularly if you're not paying 100% attention, and particularly if you just don't have the cards. So something like this is going to be great. That being said, this is going to irritate ranked players and the legendary players, the people that are really good, a lot. They're not going to like this card at all. So, but that has got me very, very excited. Okay, so this is now explaining what lifesteal does when you hover over it. I didn't realize that. Damage dealt also heals your hero. Okay, so we know what lifesteal is. That's not too bad. Let's see. Let's go back to crafting mode. And then I'm going to type in the word shield. And then hit enter to filter out and not chat with somebody. I believe the card we are looking for is actually a neutral card. And he's something pretty low. Here he is. Blood Knight. All minions lose Divine Shield and gain +3/+3 for each shield lost. You play this with 6 other minions with Divine Shield, and you're talking 18 plus 18 plus, so 21 creature on the field for 3 mana. Plus, if you already had those other characters on the field, you're getting a major increase there of well, 7 attack to a weapon and 7 attack, I believe, to another character. This is going to be a 3-card combination that is going to be very, very hard to beat. Well, that's it for the... What were we looking at? Paladin. Next time we'll look at the priest. Man, I forgot already. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. Let's click here on Collection. So to see them, you go into Crafting mode, and then you click here for Frozen Throne. Last time we looked at the Paladin, this time we're looking at the Priest cards. The first card we have is a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called Shadow Ascent. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +1/+1. This card in particular seems like it's better than, I can imagine, at least 3 or 4 other cards that I've seen that have less attack and less health themselves, and they only add like +1 attack at the end of a turn or +1 health. That being said, this card specifically is missing stealth, and the other cards usually do have stealth, so they're guaranteed to be more difficult to kill. You could easily play this on the second turn, get it killed on the second turn before there's even another minion on the field for it to use its ability. Next card we have is a 2 mana spell called Spirit Lash. Lifesteal, deal 1 damage to all minions. So we finally figured out what Lifesteal did. It heals your hero for every ability that it does. If you hover over some cards, maybe you have to hover over these cards. Well, it was working for a second there. It told me what lifesteal did. Now it doesn't want to. I think they probably need another update. Moving on, 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called Acolyte of Agony, lifesteal. I think it will be interesting if we see a lot of neutral cards with lifesteal added. It will certainly be something to keep an eye out for. It will also make a lot of 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creatures that don't have lifesteal less likely to be played. For the priest in particular, having lifesteal is going to be very helpful due to cards that get an increased attack for every time something is healed. Next we have is a 4 mana spell called Eternal Servitude. Discover a friendly minion that died this game and summon it. You could probably play this pretty strategically. Remember, Discover gives you 3 random options, it seems. So if you've lost like 20 minions, you won't get a pick of 20. You only get 3 random ones. They've never really added any ability to pick between more than 3. Probably just to save time more than anything else. Next card we have is a 5 mana spell called Devour Mind. Copy 3 cards in your opponent's deck and add them to your hand. For a priest, I'm not sure this is a card worth playing. I've never really been a fan of stealing your opponent's cards. There's no guarantee whether that you'll get anything good there. It's very random. Next card we have is a 6 mana spell called Embrace Darkness. A lot of spells. Choose an enemy minion at the start of your turn. Gain control of it. This just seems a little bit expensive to get control of an enemy minion at the start of your turn, because you have to go a full turn for that. I don't think that's going to get played very often. Next we have a 6 mana spell. Summon a 5/5 copy of a random minion in your deck. This is probably not a terrible card for the priest, honestly. It's only 1 mana more expensive than if you just summoned a 5/5 with no special ability. So this might be playable, particularly if you don't have any better cards. This is one of those cards that would be very helpful for new players if they had this and some other good cards, but they couldn't quite fill out 30 great cards in a deck. But a lot of spells here. I guess the priest already had enough characters, in their opinion. Next we have a legendary creature that is 7 mana, 4 attack, 6 health, called Archbishop Benedictus. Battlecry, shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. Really? This is insane. So you could potentially play this on the 7th turn, and barring any other modification of the deck, you would have 23 cards in your deck and 23 cards in your opponent's deck. You add that together, you have 46 cards in your deck now. That's pretty crazy. Now, there's nothing that really synergizes with that other than potentially making your opponent draw cards. I suppose this works best with the cards that make you draw a card every time a minion is healed, because now you could draw even more cards, which I guess that makes some sense. But where are you going to get all that mana to play that extra 23 plus cards you might get? Because you could play this before the 7th turn even if you can get some extra mana somewhere as a priest. I don't know if people are really going to play that one. It's very interesting, but it needs something like 2 expansions from now when they've forgotten about it that does something really crazy. And it probably will be one of these cards that works really great a year or 2 from now in Wild, but in Standard play it will have already been banned. So Blizzard will have forgotten about it and its effects and not consider it when making new cards. Here we have a 8 mana hero replacement. These hero replacements are different costs every now and then. Called Shadow Reaper Anduin. Battlecry, destroy all minions with 5 or more attack, 5 armor, 2. And a new ability called Void Form. Deal 2 damage after you play a card, refresh this. Interesting. So, I could see this being used a few times per turn if you have some other cheap cards to play with it, but that doesn't fully make it the best thing ever. Like, you're still only gonna deal 2 damage. And then destroy all minions with 5 or more attack. Just kind of makes the field empty. This feels like a card that would just slow down gameplay on the 8th turn. Instead of potentially, if your field or your opponent field had some of those 10 health, 10 attack creatures and was about to win, it might change the outcome for 1 turn, maybe 2 turns, but then your opponent will just summon their next card that they have that's above 5. Yeah, I don't think very many people are going to want to play this because it doesn't seem like it wins the game. It seems like it just slows down the inevitable loss. Finally, we have a 9 mana, 4 attack, 8 health creature called the Obsidian Statue. It has Taunt and Lifesteal and a Death Rattle to destroy a random enemy minion. I could see playing this. There are some times where having a Taunt in the Priest would be very, very useful. Let's see if we can come over the Priest. Here's the Northshire Clerk, that whenever a minion is healed, draw a card. I imagine you would want that very often if you were going to play the legendary that gave you an entire copy of your opponent's deck. And then there is another card that is, I believe, a neutral card. Yes, it is. That gains attack every time you're healed. And there's actually a couple different ways to summon Light Warden. Gains 2 attack every time a character is healed. That would still work very well with the Priest. And then there's a more powerful version of that card that gains 2 attack every time you're healed, but it starts off a little bit higher. So with Lifesteal in particular out there, these cards are going to synergize better than they ever have before. Let's see, can I find it though? It's I believe a 4 mana card. There's too many neutral cards though. I'm starting to realize this, and here's some Cabal cards that they won't ever do that again. I'm pretty sure. Did I miss it? Am I gonna embarrass myself again? I could probably just type in healed and that would help me find it. Yeah, I need to type in healed. Like, you can't even see the forest for the trees now. Really? Is the other card a priest card? Do I not own the other card? No, I'm looking at all of the... Here it is. Holy Champion. Whenever a character is healed, gain 2 attack. So, I had moved to the standard selection. This one is one of the banned wild cards. So in your wild deck in particular, this one is also whenever a character is healed, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So he would be not too bad either. Or even something like this. Whenever a character is healed, give Cthulhu plus 1/1. Then you can play Cthulhu. This one, not so much. Well, that's it for the priest cards. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at all the new cards from Knights of the Frozen Throne. So to see them, you come over here on Collection, click Crafting to go into crafting mode, and then you can click on Frozen Throne right there. Last time we looked at the Priest cards, and I guess that was the halfway point. So now we go to the Rogue cards. We have a 1 mana spell called Doomerang. Throw your weapon at a minion. It deals its damage, then returns to your hand. Wow. I don't understand what this means. Throw your weapon at a minion. It deals its damage, then returns to your hand. So, does that mean you throw it at an enemy minion that, say, has, let's just say, 5 attack? Does it do 5 attack to itself? Or does it do 5 attack to the enemy hero? Or does it do 5 attack to its own hero? This is not phrased quite like how I'd like it to be phrased. So I want to see this one actually in action, because I don't even know if that's worth it. It probably is, but maybe not. Next we have a 2 mana spell called Leeching Poison. Give your weapon lifesteal. If you can get a good rogue weapon, this would be good. I so far have not been able to see too many great weapons in rogue. Weapons tend to be a little underpowered compared to warrior, and you have to give them poison damage, and they don't have a lot of durability. So even with 2 poisons and a decent weapon to start off with, you're probably at most going to do 9 damage for 2 attacks. If you get lifesteal, that would be 18. But you would have spent probably 6 to 8 mana to get to that point, if not more. So maybe not on that one. Depends on what kind of weapons you can get as a rogue. I generally don't think doing a weapon rogue deck is doable yet. Maybe it will be after we see all the new cards though. Next we have is a 2 mana spell called Roll the Bones. Draw a card. If it has Death Rattle, cast this again. Here's an interesting card, because this could have you draw many cards. In fact, if you have only Death Rattle cards in your deck, it could have you draw all of your cards, which wouldn't be a great thing. It would just destroy all of your Death Rattle things. But then there also is a creature that summons all the destroyed Death Rattle things, but that would still be pretty crazy. It feels like a little too random, a little too much of like gambling for it to actually be worth the 2 mana, honestly. So I probably wouldn't play that. Maybe the rogue already had enough cards. I kind of feel like Hearthstone creators, Blizzard, don't particularly have great love for the rogue anyways. It doesn't seem like they ever give it anything that interesting. But also it doesn't feel like that many people play rogue in the main meta. So I don't know what's going on there, honestly. The next card is a 3 mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature called Plague Scientist. Combo, give a friendly minion poisonous. This will work in a combo deck just fine. We could use definitely more combo cards, and giving a friendly minion poisonous is not a terrible idea. So that's a good card. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 2 durability weapon, which I believe this is the second weapon that has been added. So you never get that many weapons. They're still trying to work on weapons in a weird way. They don't have an idea of what they're doing, I think. It's called Shadowblade. Battlecry, your hero is immune this turn. So, like, here's a good example. You play this for 3 mana, you play 2 poisons that would add 2 attack to it, and for 1 mana each, so that would be 5 mana to get to a 7/2, and then you play this and give lifesteal on it for another 2 mana, and you're up to 7 mana to get maybe 14 health back and do 14 damage, which would be really late game to do something like that. Why not just play Reno Jackson at that point? Next card we have is a 4 mana, 4 attack, 5 health legendary called Lillian Voss. Battlecry, replace spells in your hand with random spells from your opponent's class. I still don't like the idea of stealing cards or getting random cards based on your opponent's class. The only time I've seen a strategy like this that I've even thought was kind of funny to play is the Renounce Darkness spell of the Warlock, because then it replaces all of your Warlock cards with something that is cheaper, and by it being cheaper it makes it slightly more advantageous. This on itself I don't think I would play. I think they may not have a ton of new ideas to do on legendary cards, and in fact they may just be scraping the bottom of the barrel until they introduce some new concepts. Probably why we have hero replacement cards in this game instead of just more legendaries, in fact. Next card we have is a 4 mana, 5 attack, 3 health creature called the Runeforge Haunter. During your turn, your weapon doesn't lose durability. Well, that is interesting. This card kind of changes the whole thing. Yeah, I think this actually might work very well. So this is one to keep an eye out. In general, any weapon you have with this on the field becomes very, very good. Even if it's just the default 1 attack, 3 durability. It saves you a lot of mana to continuously resummon that weapon. So that's a keeper. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 5 health creature called the Bone Baron. Death Rattle, add 2 1/1 skeletons to your hand. So, is that worth it? This is probably a fine card. It doesn't really do anything special other than give you the 1/1 skeletons, unless skeletons have some special ability. But it's 5 mana for 5 attack for 5 health. So with that extra Death Rattle ability, that's fine. There is a card out there that makes Death Rattles happen twice. There are cards out there that can trigger Death Rattles instantly. That also sort of synergizes with this, so that's not too bad. Next we have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health creature called the Spectral Pillager. Combo deal damage equal to the number of other cards you've played this turn. I could see playing this, but you're really only going to do 3 or 4 damage at most. So it's probably a fine card to play if you have nothing better, particularly if you're making a combo deck, but nothing special. I really haven't seen anything special with any of the rogue cards. And then finally, we have our hero replacement, 9 mana this time, 5 armor, creature, well not creature, but hero replacement, legendary. Battlecry gains stealth until the next turn. I don't think that really helps anything too much. Like, having stealth for the hero for 1 turn doesn't do anything, but let's see what the hero power says. It's a passive ability, Death's Shadow. This is the first instance, I think, of ever having a passive ability for the player that is not some kind of special solo player or adventure thing. So we're going to see this in ranked play, we're going to see this in arena play at least a little bit. During your turn, add a shadow reflection to your hand. I don't know what a shadow reflection is, however. So, is that some way to, for maybe 9 mana to put your hero in stealth the whole time? Is that the trick? Or is it just a minion? One would be very interesting if your whole strategy is to continuously put your hero in stealth. That would be very, very difficult to beat. But if it's not the case and it's just a minion, then that's still pretty good, but not great. Yeah, and I imagine it's pretty good, but not great, because the other rogue cards have been pretty good, not that great. There's no new keyword that I see. There's no really amazingly new strategy. Doomerang is the most interesting card, I would say, because that's something I just don't understand how that's gonna play. So nothing too special about Rogue. Next time we'll look at Shaman. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. So to see them in the game, you come over here to Collection, you click Crafting, and then you click Frozen Throne. And the last time we looked at the Rogue cards were pretty disappointing, average, and now we're looking at the Shaman cards. We have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called Burlock, and he is a Murloc creature. So they're still doing Murlocs. For a while there, it felt like they were not going to do any Murlocs. The battle cry frees an enemy. Not too bad. The question will be, for the Shaman, is the frozen mechanic something that synergizes, or is it just something we can do because it's thematically appropriate with Knights of the Frozen Throne? The next card we have is a 2 mana spell called Cryostasis. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. And how the freeze mechanic works is a little bit tricky, but effectively, if you summon a minion and it has charge and you freeze it before you attack, it will unfreeze at the end of your turn. Whereas if it had charge and you attacked and then played Cryostasis on it, it would have to wait the entire next turn to unfreeze. So freeze is based around whether you had the opportunity to attack. If it doesn't have charge and you freeze it, it has to wait a whole turn. If it's already attacked and you freeze it, it has to wait a whole turn. So there's a crazy mechanic there that most people won't understand, or maybe people will learn it. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Ice Fishing. Draw 2 Murlocs from your deck. Here's the problem with my Murloc deck that would probably not play this card, is I have 30 Murlocs. There are more than 30 Murlocs available in the neutral cards. Playing this only works for new players that don't have enough cards to fill up full of Murlocs in the first place. Like any draw card. In any card game, pretty much, if you're drawing more cards, it's because you don't have anything better to do than draw more cards. And very rarely is there a scenario where that makes sense. Unlike, say, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Collectible card game where you could get 5 pieces of Exodia and win the game immediately, there's nothing like that so far in Hearthstone. There's no special cards that you win automatically if you have in your hand, or even become super important to have in your hand. So new players will play that. I won't. Next we have is a 3-mana 2-attack 8 health creature called the Jakari Defender. It has Taunt and Overload 3, so we're back to Overload. I don't know if I would want to play an Overload deck nowadays. It's just too punishing, honestly, and we haven't seen an introduction of enough cards that react to being overloaded. There are 3 or 4 cards that do gain attack or do something else for being overloaded, but it's a very tough strategy, and one more card for that tough strategy is helpful, but probably not good enough. Next we have a 3-mana 1-attack 3 durability weapon called the Icebreaker. I believe this is the 3rd weapon that they've introduced. Destroy any frozen minion damaged by this. Okay. So, between the 3 mana to summon this and the 2 mana to summon this, on your 5th turn you could potentially destroy something pretty powerful. I doubt it would get played that much though. I would like to see some expansion come out and there's at least one good weapon that everybody practically has to play for every single class of character. That would be nice. It would help push weapons as a more important part of the game, where right now they're pretty forgotten. Next we have a 4-mana spell called Avalanche. Freeze a minion and deal 3 damage to the adjacent ones. This is an interesting card because it doesn't do 3 damage to the one in the middle. It just freezes the one in the middle. So assume you had like a 1/1 minion in the middle and then a 3/3 over here and a 3/3 over here. You freeze the weakest one, which you'll have to deal with later, and kill the 2 on the side. This is exact opposite of what you typically see, which is something that does a lot of damage on the minion in the middle and then less damage on the edges. I think this is a great idea, and this card probably shouldn't just be for the Shaman. They should have similar cards for all the others, or it should be neutral. Next we have our hero replacement. 5 mana, pretty cheap. 5 armor, Thrall Death Seer. Battlecry, transform your minions into random ones that cost 2 more. For the Shaman, that's probably not a terrible thing, particularly if you're playing a Murloc deck. But it is a little too random for what the professionals will want to play. And his special ability is Transmute Spirit. Hero power for 2 mana. Transform a friendly minion into a random one that costs 1 more. So if you played this on the 7th turn, you could potentially knock something up to 3 levels higher than what it was. And as you go higher and higher, the odds of you getting something very powerful goes up and up, because there's not as many 10 mana cards as there are 0 mana cards and 1 mana cards. So, pretty good. In fact, maybe one of the best hero replacements we've seen so far. Next we have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 7 health creature called the Voodoo Hexer. It has taunt and freeze any characters damaged by this minion. Again, freezing, but no great synergy here other than this weapon to freeze. Next we have a 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called Moribi. Whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. Here's the synergy right there. You play this and then you start freezing things and you get copies of the card, which still is probably not the greatest thing in the world, but it is an interesting twist. It's a good way to target and steal specific cards, which is often very much impossible to do. And then here we have a 11 mana, 8 attack, 8 health elemental, and I believe this is only maybe the second or third elemental we've seen in the game, called Snow Fury Giant. It costs 1 less for each mana crystal that you've overloaded this game. This is finally a synergy card for Overload that I could see playing. And because it's epic, you can have 2 of them in your deck. So maybe I will build an Overload deck now. Like, this easily could get down to a 0 mana card. A 0/8/8. Because you can pretty easily overload 8 mana crystals. And there's great ways to overload early in the game where you can overload more cards than more crystals than you even have. So I'll be interested to see if that counts. So that last card was a bit of a surprise, and it makes it a little bit better. They didn't do too much with Murlocs, though, but I don't think you really need to do too much with Murlocs. Just every now and then throw them a bone and remind the players that you're still remembering that they exist, and that's kind of all you need to do. That's it for the Shaman cards. A little interesting, a little dull. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. So you come over here to collection, you go into crafting mode, you click here, and you click on Frozen Throne. That's the easiest way to see them right now. Last time we looked at the Shaman cards, which means we only have the Warlock cards and the Warrior cards and the neutral cards. And when we get to the neutral cards, that's when strategies are really going to start forming in line with the special cards per character class, because the neutral cards can be used with anybody. But we're looking at Warlock right now. First card we have is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called the Sanguine Revealer. Battlecry, destroy a friendly minion and gain +2/+2. This is a pretty good card, particularly with the Nightmare card. However, they have changed what the Nightmare card does. It no longer resummons itself instantly. It resummons itself at the end of the turn. Which means if you fill up your field and you have already killed a Nightmare through this way or some other way, it can't resummon itself. And it's easier to destroy. Which is probably a fair balance, considering the Nightmare card was frankly a nightmare. It was almost impossible to defeat. You have to silence it, then kill it. Otherwise. and they probably did need to make that change. I'm not a huge fan of Blizzard making changes, but in this instance, I can see why. Next we have is a 2-mana spell called Defile. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If any die, cast this again. Again, here's why the Nightmare card had to be changed. Because if you played this and it did 1 damage to the Nightmare, which was a 1/1 card, we're going to have to look at that card just to show it later, then the Nightmare would have died and resummoned itself. This would have cast it again. The Nightmare would have died and resummoned it. This would have cast it again. The Nightmare would have died and resummoned it. Now, this wouldn't instantly win the game for you, but what it would do is create an infinite loop that would never end the game. You would just be stuck. It would go in circles forever, and that would be very silly. And so this is the reason why Nightmare got changed, right? Almost certainly. Next card we have is a 2-mana spell, Drain Soul, Lifesteal, deal 2 damage to a minion. I'm interested in seeing if deal 2 damage to a minion includes Lifesteal or not. This will be an interesting... I guess it has to, because this is a spell. So you do 2... So instead of deal 2 damage to a minion and heal yourself too, it's saying deal 2 damage to a minion and heal yourself too. It's basically saying the exact same thing. But perhaps not. If you do 2 damage to a 1/1 minion, maybe you only get 1 health. So maybe you have to think of it, make a consideration there. That would be an interesting twist on it. Next we have a 2-mana 2-attack 3 health creature called Nosferatu. Instead of Nosferatu, it's a vampire gnome. Battlecry, remove the top card from your opponent's deck. Is there a strategy to make the opponent put a specific card on top of their deck? Though. There is a strategy to probably, I think, make Battlecries activate twice. Maybe there's a card out there. Maybe there isn't. But unless you can force your opponent to have something very important on top of their deck, this is probably not a card you would play for that reason. But it is still probably a good card to play if you just needed a 2-mana 2-attack 3 health. And it would irritate the opponent, and it would get rid of 1 potentially important card. What we desperately need is a card like this that says put a duplicate of one of your opponent's cards in their deck. That way, every single ranked player, every single person out there that's playing Reno Jackson, which is more than 50% of the people, if you have Reno Jackson, you playing Reno Jackson, and Reno Jackson says if you have no duplicates, refresh your health all the way to the original, so back to 30. If you could have a card like this that put 1 duplicate in their deck and ruin their Reno Jackson play, that would be amazingly good. I would fully love to see that happen. But I don't think there is a way to do that. Except for maybe Ambush Bug. That might be a way of putting duplicates in there. Maybe everybody should be playing Ambush Bug. Yeah, there's a couple of cards that do put cards in your deck, in your opponent's deck, so maybe that's how you pull it off. But nobody's been playing that, certainly. Next we have a 3 attack, 3 mana, 3 attack, 6 health demon. This may be the first demon, since demons are specific to Warlock only. Creature called Howl Fiend. Whenever this minion takes damage, discard a random card. This card will work very good with some of the other discard decks that already exist. There's one or two cards that specifically work very well when you discard. They gain health, they gain attack, or something else, or they make you draw a card when you discard a card. So if you played something like this and then played something like this, you could draw, you could discard 6 cards and have something very powerful by killing your own card. Next card we have is a 3-mana spell called Treachery. Choose a friendly minion and give it to your opponent. Yeah, I can't see a reason why you'd want to play that. There's no minion in the Warlock collection of cards that I could see that... There's nothing that says, like, deal 3 damage to your opponent every time this is on the field at the beginning of your turn or something. So, I don't know what this is even supposed to synergize against. There's a couple of cards that kind of make sense, but nothing amazingly good. Next card we have is a 3-mana spell called Unwilling Sacrifice. Choose a friendly minion, destroy it, and a random enemy minion. Not too bad for a 3 mana. I think that's probably a good one. Next we have a 5 mana, 1 attack, 6 health legendary creature called Blood Queen of Lanatherial, I guess. Lifesteal has +1 attack for each card that you've discarded this game. Absolutely what you want in the discard deck. This really synergizes well and makes it much more playable to play the discard deck and much more playable to play Warlock in general, I think. Because it's not like Warlocks are the best character to play as anyways. Next we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 5 health demon called Despicable Dreadlord. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Not bad. That's pretty good. I'll play that if I have it. And finally we have a 10 mana, big time here, hero replacement with 5 armor called the Blood Reaver Gul'dan. Battlecry, summon all friendly demons that died this game. And he has a hero power for 2 mana called Siphon Light. Hero power, lifesteal, deal 3 damage. So, I can certainly see why this is 10 mana. Summon all friendly demons that died this game. Isn't going to probably fill your board with amazing cards, but it will fill your board with decent cards. And it gives you 5 armor. And then you have this new ability of Siphon Life where you can steal your opponent's life for 3 and heal yourself, which is very good. So now the Warlock seems like it's really got something it can actually work with there. So I've been calling it the Nightmare card, but this one is actually called the Dreadsteed card. And let's see, it's an epic card. So here's the deal. If I disenchanted this card, I would get 400 dust because it's been changed. And then if I created it, it would cost me 400 cards. 400 dust. So it's kind of unimportant in my case because I actually do want this card. But in the future, it would be nice. But if people didn't want to play this, if they only wanted to play standard, for instance, now would be the time to disenchant it. But that's not why we're here. At the end of your turn, summon a Dreadsteed is the new way this works, and that was specifically added to focus on to not create an infinite loop with Defile or some of the other things. But it also makes it a better card, in my opinion. It's more balanced. It was overpowered before. It was definitely overpowered when it just immediately resummoned itself. There's another card, if I can find it. There's many discard cards, certainly, but this one in particular, whenever you discard a card, get +1/+1. The Tiny Knight of Evil, that will certainly be very helpful. Sadly, Renounced Darkness doesn't count as a discard, so when you play that, you don't discard all of your hand and summon it, replace it with a new hand. And I'm not sure there's too much else that needs to really be looked at. Nope. So that's the Warlock. Next time we will look at the Warrior cards and then the neutral cards. We're almost done here. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are doing all of the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. We can finally see them. You have to come over to the collection, go into crafting mode, click on Frozen Throne over here. Last time we looked at the Warlock cards, some interesting cards. Now we are finally to the Warrior, and then we only have neutral after that. First card we have new is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 3 health creature called Animated Berserker. After you play a minion, deal 1 damage to it. This most certainly will be helpful in an enraged deck. It is only 1 mana, so it certainly makes it much more playable to play an enraged deck, which has been a bit of a problem. I've always wanted to play an enraged deck, but I've never felt like it was successful. Maybe that's different now with a couple of those cards. Next we have a 2 mana spell called Bring It On. Gain 10 armor, reduce the cost of minions in your opponent's hand by 2. This is a great card because you don't play a card like this on the 2nd turn. You play it on, say, around the 5th turn of a player that's not that good, or even a player that's decent. If they only have 1 or less cards in their hand and you reduce his cost by 2, not a big deal. If they have 5 cards in their hand like they would on potentially the 2nd turn, it's a lot bigger deal. Either way, you get 10 armor. It's still probably a decent thought. Particularly if you're playing Wild and you have Shield Slam that then would allow you to do 10 damage because of the 10 armor to a minion. Next card we have is a 2 mana spell called Dead Man's Hand. Shuffle a copy of your hand into your deck. This is crazy. This is pretty crazy. There's no real strategy here, but there's a lot of times you would get sort of lucky. Say you had 1 legendary card. Let's go with Reno Jackson. I've mentioned that a lot, and there's a good reason. It gets played a lot. It's very useful. It refills your health if you have no duplicates. You take a Reno Jackson, you play this card once you have Reno Jackson, and then you shuffle a second Reno Jackson in your hand. You should, at this point, still have no duplicates in your deck at all, because all the duplicates would be in your hand. So, yeah, crazy card. That's going to get banned or changed pretty quickly, I bet. I haven't seen any other cards that feel like they're going to get changed immediately, but that one seems like it was not thought through all the way. Next, we have a 2-mana spell called Forge of Souls. Draw 2 weapons from your deck. Let me think about that for a second. If you're playing a weapons deck, there still probably isn't enough weapons in the game. If you're playing a regular deck where you only have a couple of weapons, I could see this being helpful. It's still probably not going to get used very much. Weapons have not been fully embraced as an idea and a concept, so this is, I guess, a step towards that, but I don't think it's going to get used that much. And the only time anybody really needs to play a weapons deck is because they have a daily quest to play a certain number of weapons. And like, even the warrior, who has way more weapons than anybody else, I'm not sure you can make a deck just full of 30 weapons. So this would be one to play for that, and that alone. Next, we have a 3-mana, 4-attack, 3-health creature called the Mountain Fire Armor. It's armor, not armorer. Oh, so the armor itself is alive, apparently. Death rattle. If it's your opponent's turn, gain 6 armor. Interesting. This is a new style of death rattle. I don't think we've seen this before. It'll definitely work if your strategy is to gain as much armor as possible and win by that advantage. And it's not a bad card by itself. For 3 mana, 4/3 is about average. Getting the extra 6 armor is kind of just gravy. A little extra there. Next, we have a 3-mana, 1-attack, 4-health creature called Valkyrie Soul Claimer. Whenever this minion survives damage, summon a 2/2 ghoul. We've seen ghouls mentioned before. We don't know until we see them if they have any special ability like Taunt or Lifesteal or Poisonous. If it's just a 2/2 creature with no special ability, nothing that interesting. If there's something cool about ghouls, that would be great. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that ghouls are the opposite of Jade Idols. Jade Idols, every time you summon a Jade Idol, it's +1/+1 of the last one you summoned. So your cards will say summon a 1/1 Jade Idol the first time, and then it will say summon a 2/2, then say summon a 3/3, a 4/4. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes up every time a ghoul dies. So it's a 2/2 ghoul now. If you play it a second time after the first ghoul dies, I wouldn't be surprised if it summons like 3/3. That would be a nice balance to Jade Idols, but it is just speculation at this point. So we really need to see what that card is. Otherwise, this is kind of a weak card, but not terrible. Next, we have a 4-mana, 2-attack, 2 durability weapon, which I believe this is the 4th or 5th weapon now. We got a decent number of them, but it's not like it's been 8 weapons, 1 for each character. And I would like to see on these expansions that they commit to doing at least 1 weapon per character, at least 1 secret, at least 1 spell, at least 1 minion. 1 of everything, at least 1 legendary, at least 1 new quest item for every new expansion, which there have been no new quests. We're probably never going to see quests again, or not for a long time. At least 1 hero replacement going forward. Every time they introduce something new, I'd like them to continue developing on that concept and adding more. Or more beneficially, I wish they kind of just would stop making specific cards and just make everything neutral cards, so any of them could use it. That would be easier on them, certainly. 4 mana, 2 attack, 2 durability. I think I already said that. Blood Razor, Battle Cry, and Death Cry. Deal 1 damage to all minions. Not too bad for 4 mana. Not amazingly great, but not too bad. It's better than, I imagine, a couple other weapons that you could pick from. Next card we have is a 5 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called the Death Revenant. Battle Cry, gain +1/+1 for each damaged minion. Here's the deal, is you could have at most 13 damaged minions, 7 on your opponent's side, 6 on your side, and 1 spot to summon this character. It is highly unlikely that would happen on the 5th turn. That would probably be closer to a 10th turn in which both players aren't even playing that well. But let's say that happened. You have 13 here, you're getting 16 at most. In the best case scenario, for 5 mana, this isn't a card I'd specifically play towards. It is maybe a card I would play in an Enraged deck, on average try to get it as a 5/5 on the 5th turn by having at least 2 other damaged minions on the field. That seems more doable, but this isn't a game changer gonna win by doing 16 damage to the face twice. But it is probably a helpful addition. It's one of those helper cards. Next we have an 8 mana, 4 attack, 6 health legendary creature called Rotface. Whenever this minion survives damage, summon a random legendary minion. Interesting. Interesting. I think I would definitely want to play this, particularly in a rage deck. Just keep doing damage to it. The Whirlwind is still out there where it does 1 damage to everything, and then there's a Kunakai card that does 1 damage randomly until it kills a minion out there. That also would summon some random legendary minions. Random legendary minions are about as best as you can get for summoning a minions cheap. They might be good, they might be bad, but they're more likely going to be good. I kind of wish there were some more rotten legendaries, just cards that are legendary for being awful. This costs like 10 mana and it's a 0/1 health card, and once per turn it does 1 damage to the hero enemy, to your own hero, something like that would never get played. But the problem with introducing awful legendary cards that are really expensive, have really low attack, really low health, is then the card pack opening mechanic would be horrible. Since it takes on average at a maximum 50 card packs to get 1 legendary, if you actually opened 50 card packs and then got a terrible legendary, people would be very, very dissatisfied. So you can't do that. Maybe what they could do is introduce terrible legendaries in a solo expansion, but then who would buy the solo expansion? It would have to be terrible legendaries handed to all players no matter what. You just get these and you have to have them. Nobody would ever play them or put them in their own decks, but then they would show up randomly. Well, I guess if they just introduce them into the game and nobody ever actually crafts them, that they're handed to you, that would work. It's an interesting concept that I just thought up. Of course it's interesting because I'm thinking about it. All my thoughts to me are interesting and probably nobody else. Finally, we have the hero replacement, 8 mana, spell, 5 armor, Scourge Lord Garrosh. Battlecry, equip a 4/3 Shadow Mourn that also damages adjacent minions. I'm not super interested in a weapon like that, but yeah, I don't think I'd play this hero replacement too much for that. That doesn't seem like it's very useful. Inevitably, this will probably be the one hero replacement legendary I get. It's the one I don't really want. It has a 2 ability to deal 1 damage to all minions, which for an enraged deck works pretty well, Bloodstorm. So clearly they're focusing on enraged deck. There's really nothing else here except for some random armor cards and shuffling copies of your hand to into a deck, which that one's pretty crazy in itself, I have to admit. But yeah, not too bad. And so that's Warrior card. And now we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of legendary, not legendary, but neutral cards to go through in the next recording. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Okay, for the live viewers, I'm going to take a break and I'll be right back in about 20 minutes to do the neutral cards. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for Knights of the Frozen Throne. So to see them, you go over here to the collection, and you go to crafting mode, and then you click over here on Frozen Throne. That's where you can see them all. We've gone through Druid, Hunter, Mage, Paladin, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior, and now we just need to look at the neutral cards that can be used by any of them. Now, here's the point where cards that we've seen might start to make more sense or be better as far as synergizing and introducing new ways to play. However, I am also noticing that there's only been about 10 cards, if not exactly 10, for each of these characters, which means 90 cards, and there's only 6 pages of neutral cards, which 6 times 8 gives you, let's see, 8, 16, 16, 32, plus another 16, which would be 48 more cards, if my math is right there. Maybe not. That certainly means this expansion is not as big as the last expansion. Is that a terrible thing? Not really, but it does seem like maybe when I open the 100 card packs, I might get almost everything, which would be good, because that also means that they specifically made it so that you had the ability to win 100 card packs worth of gold, which is what I did. I've been noticing they've been giving us free arena runs and gold a lot, and I think that's what they're trying to do, is make it cheaper to get everything. And Windows wants to restart my computer right now. Great. No, don't worry, it won't do it. So the first card is 0 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called Snow Flipper Penguin. It's a beast character, and this feels like this is probably just filling in a missing hole in the collection of potential cards. We probably didn't have a 0 mana 1/1 beast previously, or the previous 0 mana 1/1 beast was going to wild, and so they're reintroducing a new version of the exact same card so it can still be played in standard. As they make more and more cards wild, there will be this consistent refreshing and replacing of cards to a certain point where they'll just say, forget it, we'll just keep the same cards and not pay somebody to animate a new animation and a new audio cue when it's played, and like think of a new name. But they're not to that point yet. Next card we have is a 1 mana 2 attack 1 health creature called Akurus Veteran. Battlecry, give a friendly minion +1 attack. Nothing special there, particularly just a different combination of numbers to do something we've seen before. I imagine we're going to see a lot of that. But not in this case. We have a 1 mana 1 attack 1 health Murloc. This Murloc will certainly go in my Murloc deck if I can get it, because it has life steal. So when it does 1 damage, it will also heal 1 to me. If it does more than 1 damage, it will heal that much to me. Next we have a 1 mana 1 attack 1 health. They're just filling in all the potential 1/1/1s here, called the Wretched Tiller. Whenever this minion attacks, deal 2 damage to an enemy hero. This is actually a very good card. I could see playing this in almost any deck if you don't have any better cards. He won't last that long, but he potentially will get at least 3 damage to the enemy hero before he dies, I would say. Next we have a 2 mana 2 attack 1 health creature called Fallen Sun Clerk. Battle cry, give a friendly minion +1/+1. I think this is only a slightly different than the previous Sun Clerk card. That maybe the previous Sun Clerk was a 1 attack 2 health creature. Or maybe it costs a little bit different. Not too bad though. This is pretty good. When probably not going to see too many spells. It's probably going to be more focused on characters if I was to guess. We have a new 2-mana legendary, which is something that's helpful. 2 attack, 2 health, Prince Khaleesith. Battlecry, if your deck contains no 2-cost cards, give your minions in your deck +1/+1. Seriously? So people that play like all legendaries and really late game decks are going to get super benefited by this card, whereas new players that are going to have 2-cost cards are going to suffer. Or you're going to play all Murlocs, but even some of the Murlocs cost 2 mana, so I don't think you'd be able to do that. Or maybe you could play all just 1-cost minions. We did see a few 1-cost minions added. I don't know about this one. This one seems like a little overpowered. I've seen one previous card that felt like it might need to get nerfed pretty early. This is another one that feels like that. Next we have a 2-mana, 1 attack, 1 health, Tainted Zealot, Divine Shield, and spell damage +1. Spell damage +1, probably helpful for the mage. I don't think it's super easy to have 7 minions on your side of the field doing spell damage +1 to give you eventually +7 on spell damage, and some mage players might actually be playing for that, and the Divine Shield certainly can help. It is a little bit expensive, more expensive, but it gives you 2 abilities for that extra 1 mana, so it's totally worth it. Next we have a 2-mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature called the Tuskar Fisherman. Battlecry, give a friendly minion spell damage +1. If you run into a bunch of these, you could say play this on this and give it spell damage +2, which is the thing. Next we have a 3-mana, 2 attack, 4 health creature called Death Speaker. Battlecry, give a friendly minion immunity this turn. This might be pretty helpful in some scenarios, but it's pretty expensive too, so you'd have to really think it through if you wanted this to take up 1 space in your deck. Next is a 3-mana, 1 attack, 5 health creature called the Dakari Enchanter. At the end of your turn, your end of turn effects trigger twice. Well, this is going to synergize with a lot of cards, so almost certainly this is a card to play if you have a lot of end of turn effects. Interestingly, the Dread Steed, which was just changed to summon a new Dread Steed when it dies at the end of the turn, might get triggered twice because of this. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it either gets triggered twice this way, or it gets triggered twice by a different card that triggers Death Rattle twice. Either way, this card is going to be useful for a lot of different, very specific scenarios. Next we have a 3-mana, 3 attack, 3 health card called the Happy Ghoul. Cost 0 if your hero was healed this turn. That'll work decently with a priest card, or any deck really where you heal a lot. Here we have a 3-mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called the High Denier Frost Rider. Battlecry, freeze your other minions. I'm not sure that there's a great reason for this, but if you played this on the 3rd turn, there's a decent chance you wouldn't have any other minions anyways, and it is more powerful than it should be at 4 attack and 4 health for 3 mana. Next we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 5 health card called Mindbreaker. Hero powers are disabled. This is crazy. This is totally crazy, but this is the kind of card you might need in every single deck you build, just to destroy your opponent's ability. If I was playing against a mage in particular, play this and he can't do any damage with his Fire Blast. That's one to keep an eye on, certainly. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health legendary card called Prince Taldaram. Battlecry, if your deck has no 3 cost cards, transform into a 3/3 copy of this minion. I don't understand this at all. If your deck has no 3 cost minions, transform into a 3/3 copy of a minion. This is already a 3/3 copy of this minion. This doesn't make any sense at all. Like, literally. The only thing, and you could think, is there is a card that will summon a legendary, random legendary minion that is a 1/1 version of itself, but it is summoned in so it doesn't trigger a battle cry. So I have literally no idea what this card is saying, because it's doing nothing. It seems crazy. If it was summon a 3/3 copy of this minion, that would make sense. But the transform, it's crazy. We'll have to see that one in actual play to figure out what it even means to do. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 1 health creature called the Shallow Gravedigger. Death Rattle, add a random Death Rattle minion to your hand. If you're playing a Death Rattle deck, this makes a lot of sense. And it's not terrible at 3 attack, even though it only has 1 health. Next we have a 3 attack, 3 mana, 3 attack, 1 health creature called Vergul. Death Rattle, if it's your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 ghoul. We still don't know what ghouls are, but there certainly is some kind of strategy around it that will only reveal itself once we put everything with ghoul in the name or description into a deck, and that will be one of the decks I will hopefully be able to build. Next we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 2 health beast called Arthas, and he's a legendary. Death Rattle, add a random Death Knight card to your hand. We'll have to look at which cards are called Death Knight, and whether that is a card with Death Knight in the name, or if that is a whole new series of cards that you're going to randomly be added. Either could be the case, and that'll be interesting to see what they are. Next we have is a 4 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called Corpse Taker. Battlecry, gain taunt. If your deck has a taunt minion, repeat for Divine Shield, Lifesteal, and Wind Fury. So this is probably an amazingly good card. Like, if you have a very balanced deck, put this in your deck. Play it. If you have any other taunts in your deck, you get taunt. If you have any Divine Shields, you get that. If you have Wind Fury, you get that. And if you have Lifesteal, you get that. That being said, it's very rare that you make a deck where characters have taunt and Divine Shield and Lifesteal and Wind Fury. There is, however, a Shaman card that has all of these except for Lifesteal. So if that one Shaman card is in your collection and you play this, you get everything except for Lifesteal, and that might work very well. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called the Death Axe Punisher. Battlecry, give a random Lifesteal minion in your hand, +2/+2. This, I feel like there's a elemental Lifesteal deck out there to be built, but we haven't seen all the cards for it yet. Lifesteal might be a game changer, it might not. It just depends on how many lifesteal cards you can get on the field and actually use. Next we have a 4 mana, 4 attack, 4 health elemental called Grave Shambler. Whenever your weapon is destroyed, gain +1/+1. This would work pretty good in a weapons deck. Not super useful in a elemental deck. If you were playing an elemental rogue and you use 2 durabilities on your weapon, does it work, or is it only when your weapon is destroyed and not used up? That's something we'd have to test, because if you play a weapon that only has 1 durability, which there are a couple of them, and then you attack and then it gets destroyed because you used up all the durability, and this gets +1/+1, that would be a little unfair, but not so unbroken that I could imagine them doing it. We still haven't seen a single spell. Like, we're on the second page here and no spells. I bet we see very few, if any. I'm not even sure neutral cards have spells, which seems a little weird, but that might be the case actually. Next we have is a 4 mana, 2 attack, 4 health creature called the Grim Necromancer. Battlecry, summon 2 1/1 skeletons. Again, like ghouls, unless skeletons are special, I assume they're just 1/1 characters. Next we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 5 health creature called the Keening Banshee. Whenever you play a card, remove the top 3 cards of your deck. When you remove the top 3 cards of your deck, are you discarding them, or are you doing something new as far as a key phrase called remove? That's important, because if you were playing this with in a discard warlock deck, this would be very helpful. Otherwise, this is a pretty awful card. I don't think you'd want to play it. Next we have a 4 mana, 1 attack, 4 health mech. I'm surprised they're putting any mechs in the game. They've really banned almost all mechs, and I didn't think they were coming back as a class of cards. But every now and then we get 1 or 2. This is called the Meat Wagon. Death Rattle, summon a minion from your deck that has less attack than this minion, which could work very, very well if you can continuously give this more attack. But it doesn't work that greatly, because even if you could get this up to a 10 attack and every other card in your deck has less than 10 attack, there's still no guarantee that you would get something high. You may still get something that's just a 1. Mostly I'd say play this in a mech deck, and maybe not even then, and nothing else. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health creature called the Night Howler. Whenever this minion takes damage, gain +2 attack. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 3 health pirate. I'm surprised that there's a pirate. I guess there's same way. They're adding 1 pirate, and we needed a few more pirates, I think. It's called the Phantom Freebooter. Battlecry, gain stats equal to your weapons, which means but gain the attack of your weapon and the durability as health in your weapon, which also means this is a new key phrase, stats. We have not seen that word ever used before. So you get a very powerful weapon, trade it with this, you have a very powerful pirate. Not a bad idea. Next we have a 4 mana, 4 attack, 4 health legendary minion called Prince Valenier. Battlecry, if your deck has no 4 cost cards, gain lifesteal and taunt. They are literally going up the list here. We've seen a legendary that does something if you have no 2 cost minions. We've seen one that does something if you have no 3 cost minions. And now we see one that does something different if you have no 4 cost minions. So I have no idea what the strategy to all of this is. It seems pretty crazy to me. The only way I imagine you could do this is you'd have to fill up all of your deck with things that cost 10 mana or more, and then play these cards and hope to get these cards each turn. And the benefits you get for each of this doesn't make any sense. Unless there's a card out there that says Prince. Like summon a bunch of princesses. Because each one of these has been called Prince, I believe. Let's go back and look. Prince Talmadan for 3. Prince Khaleesi. So there must be some card that they're thinking about making, or that they have made, that summons all of these princes out of your deck. Or at least one of them. That's the only thing that makes any sense. Next, we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called the Battling Rascal. Battlecry, summon a 5/5 skeleton. Death Rattle, summon 1 for your opponent. Not a terrible card, particularly if you have some buffs to make sure this guy doesn't die, or you just play this near the end of the game where it won't affect too much anyways. Next, we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 3 health creature called the Serenite Chain Gang. Taunt. Battlecry, summon a copy of this minion. If you have the card that doubles your battle cries, you would summon 2 copies of this minion, which isn't super helpful. Still just 2 3s, but okay. Maybe you get a couple, get 3 of them for effectively a 6/9, which is pretty good for 4 mana. Next, we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 6 health creature called the Ticking Abomination. Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your minions. Probably wouldn't want to play this if you don't have anything better. Dealing 5 damage to your minions seems pretty crazy. Next, we have a 4 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called the Wicked Skeleton. Gain +1/+1 for each minion that's died this turn as a battle cry. And again, if you doubling battle cries, this could work very well. What is the maximum this could get? There could be 14 minions on the field, and you could kill all 14 of them. And then, unless there was a trap or something that would, like a noble sacrifice trap, that you could play a charge character and kill that, then you could get to 16, and then you could double the battle cry twice and get from 16 to 32. So you could get a 33-33. As much as I can imagine would be the best case scenario for this card for 4 mana, which is not realistic that you'd ever get to a 33-33, but on the other hand, you probably more than often than not could get it to a 4/4 for 4 mana. And if you're doubling battle cries, why not? Next, we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 4 health beast called the Bloodworm. He has lifesteal. Not a bad card. It costs 1 mana more, but it has lifesteal, so that works. Next, we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 5 health dragon. We haven't seen too many dragons. I think this is the 3rd, called the Cobalt Scalebane. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +3 attack. Remember, there is a character that doubles at the end of your turn effects, so this works nicely with that. Next, we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 3 health creature called Corpse Raiser. Battlecry, give a friendly minion Death Rattle, we summon this minion. Again, doubling Death Rattle. We're seeing a lot of at the end of your turn Death Rattle cards, which makes sense thematically. We have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 2 health creature called the Skelemancer. Death Rattle if it's your opponent's turn. Summon an 8/8 skeleton. That's not too bad, although it's pretty expensive. But then double that Death Rattle and get 2 8/8s. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 4 health creature called Sunborn Valkyrie. Battlecry, give adjacent minions +2 health. This will work well in the priest card, priest deck, and probably not too many other things, but in general it's a good card if you've got nothing better. It's about average. Slightly above average maybe. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 3 health creature called the Tomb Lurker. Battlecry, add a random death rattle minion that died this game to your hand. This is an interesting one because it's a Battlecry card itself and it adds a death rattle minion to your hand. I'm not sure you specifically would want this in general. There's probably some really good specific strategies this might work with, but it's crossing a line by being Battlecry itself and then summoning a Death Rattle. It implies that you would want both Battlecries and Death Rattles in your deck, and that seems just too unfocused for me, so I'd probably skip that card. Next we have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 5 health Venomancer, poisonous. Nothing super special here, but it's a decent card with poison. It doesn't have taunt, and in general you'd want taunt with poison. But it might kill a couple of characters for 5 mana, which may be worth it. Maybe not, depending on what it kills. Next we have a 6 mana, 6 attack, 5 health dragon called the Bone Drake. Death Rattle, add a random dragon to your hand. If you're making a dragon deck, I could definitely see playing this. This would be helpful. I still don't feel like there's quite enough dragon cards to make a 30 dragon deck that makes sense, but this certainly is one that starts to make it make sense. Next we have a 6 mana, 6 attack, 6 health creature called the Furnace Fire Colossus. Battlecry, discard all weapons from your hand and gain their stats. This card is going in my weapons deck if I get it, most definitely. I have a specific deck for the daily quest of playing a certain number of weapons. All that it is 30 weapons cards pretty much. This goes in there. I discard 4 weapons and gain all of their stats. I could easily approach 30/30 if not higher. There is one weapon specifically that's a 7/1, so just discarding that one card would give you 13/7. Next we have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 3 health creature called the Necrotic Geist. Whenever one of your other minion dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul. Again, we need to see what ghouls do, if they're just general creatures or if they have special abilities. Otherwise, this seems like it might be a little weak, but okay. Back to this card, I would say probably don't play this card if you don't have any weapons in your deck, though. Wow, and we're almost done. No 9 mana cards, no 10 mana cards added. We have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health creature called the Nebulous Unravel. Spells cost 2 more. I could see a lot of people playing this, particularly if you're not playing spells. Just throw this in your deck and make your opponent spend more mana. Good strategy. And you can play 2 of these, so you can make them 4 more. Next we have a 6 mana, 4 attack, 6 health creature called the Skulking Geist. Battlecry, destroy all 1-cost spells in both hands and decks. This again is like a mage destroyer, but a very specific mage destroyer that you probably wouldn't want to play. Maybe, maybe not. You'd have to wait till your 6th turn to play something like this anyways, and so that probably means half the 1-cost spells in anybody's deck is already gone. This could work rather well if you had very specific cards in your collection and then you filled the rest of your deck with 1-cost spells, played this, and then destroyed that many cards so that you could draw the very specific thing you're looking for. But that's a very advanced strategy that most people won't be willing to risk. Here we have a 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called Spellweaver. Spell damage +2. Spell damage +2 I think is new. I don't think there's another card that does +2. There's some that do +1, definitely. And then there's 1 or 2 that do +5. But +2 is new, I believe. Next we have a 7 mana, 5 attack, 5 health creature called the Bone Mare. Battlecry, give a friendly minion +4/+4 and taunt. This probably isn't too terrible, and it's a common card, so you can have 2 of these in your field and play these on the 7th or 8th turn and power up somebody else. There is one dragon that when it's targeted by spells gets +1/+1, but it wouldn't work with this, so there's no special card that I think this super synergizes with, but it does in general buff cards. And then finally we have the Lich King, which in all honesty, since this whole game is focused around the Lich King, you would hope that everybody would get this in the expansion, but maybe not. We haven't seen an insane amount of legendaries, but enough that I imagine if you just bought 50 card packs, you wouldn't get this guaranteed. He's an 8 mana, 8 attack, 8 health creature, and he has taunt. At the end of your turn, add a random Death Knight card to your hand. So that kind of doesn't really tell us much unless we know what a Death Knight is, and we can come over here and look at all cards and then look at knights. There is a Black Knight, come on game, that destroys things with taunt. There's a Spectral Knight, Blood Knight. This is a Death Knight. There's 3 cards that reference Death Knights, but they are just random cards. No, there's only 2 cards that reference Death Knights. And none of these others are Death Knights. So again, that's something we're just gonna have to find out about through playing. Let's see. Some interesting things about the changes on the Dreadsteed. The Defile card, for instance, forced Dreadsteed, which is a 4 mana card, to have a death rattle now, and we've said there's a couple things with the key phrase. I think it's twice, so if we type in the word twice, only a few things have this. Use your hero power twice, your battle cries trigger twice by Bronzebeard, at your end of the turn effects trigger twice, and your death rattle things trigger twice. So that's going to be interesting too. So that's all the new cards for Frozen Throne. There's still some stuff to do and think about, but at least I have an idea. We're not going to do any crazy new decks. We're just going to try and win. Excuse me. 1 second. Sorry about that. I had a coughing fit. So, up to this point, all of my decks have been built around doing the daily quest. But you can now go to a deck and just copy it out and paste it back in. So you don't need to have standing specific decks for that. Which means for the first time for me, my focus can now be shifted away from doing the daily quests, which are here, and instead focus on winning ranked play and arena play. Although arena play gives you random cards anyway, so that won't really be an issue. But winning ranked play will be now the focus. So all of these decks, when I can purchase the 100 card packs and open them, will certainly be focused on winning. And the Frozen Throne expansion certainly seems like it's going to be helpful for that. And I guess it will be 104 card packs. Well, that get opened because I had a Tavern Brawl that gave me an extra one, or Watch and Learn quest or something. That's it for the card reveals. Let me know what you think about the new cards, and if you see any strategies that I may have missed. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.